This collection of unsettling encounters highlights the remarkable resilience and quick thinking of individuals who found themselves in potentially dangerous situations. From a young child's near abduction to eerie experiences later in life, these stories serve as important reminders of the value of vigilance and awareness in protecting oneself. Each narrative reveals how intuition, presence of mind, and family support can make all the difference when facing unsettling moments. I still vividly recall an early dismissal day back in elementary school. Those days when we would get out an hour or two earlier than usual due to staff meetings or development sessions. To me as a kid, it simply meant extra free time. I was quietly working on some math problems at my desk when the classroom phone rang. I joked with my friend, "Watch it be for me," as we all watched the teacher pick up the call, knowing that often meant someone was leaving early. But then something about the teacher's expression caught me off guard. Her eyes locked onto mine, and my joking stopped instantly. A weird chill ran through me. As an anxious child, my mind raced to worst-case scenarios. The teacher spoke briefly on the phone before turning to me with a strange question. "Hey, when are you getting off the bus today?" It struck me as odd because my mom always knew my bus schedule, especially on early dismissal days when she arranged to leave work early to pick me up. I answered with a regular time without thinking much of it. After a few more words on the phone, the teacher hung up and later told me my parent had just called to confirm when I'd be off the bus. I didn't dwell on it, preoccupied with lunch and recess as kids do. That afternoon, I got off the bus and walked home like any other day. My mom greeted me, helped me off with my coat, and asked about school. The usual small talk. Then, out of curiosity, I asked her why she called the school asking about my bus time. Her face changed instantly. She turned pale and said she hadn't made any such call. I told her about the call at school, the peculiar question, and how the teacher said it was from one of my parents. That's when panic washed over the house. My mom began making frantic phone calls. Though she didn't explain anything to me, I could sense something terrible was unfolding. About 20 minutes later, my stepdad came home early, and soon after, a state trooper arrived at our house. Fear gripped me. I thought I'd done something wrong. The officer sat me down calmly and asked questions to gauge if anyone had tried to approach me, if I'd seen suspicious cars or been offered rides. I hadn't noticed anything unusual. We lived in a quiet, older neighborhood mostly filled with retirees. It never felt unsafe. But after the questioning, my mom told me to pack an overnight bag. It was my dad's weekend for visitation, and when he came to pick me up, after the trooper grilled him, I left with him. During the weekend, he taught me some self-defense moves, which I thought was cool, even if I didn't fully grasp why at the time. Life returned to normal after that, and I almost forgot the incident. Until years later, a chilling memory resurfaced while listening to a creepy story narrator on YouTube. I reached out to my mom, and what she told me sent shivers down my spine. Someone had called the school, pretending to be my dad. This man knew my full name, my parents' names, and claimed my mother couldn't leave work in time and had sent him to pick me up. The school never called my mom to confirm. I now believe that the only thing saving me was my innocent answer about the normal bus time, not the adjusted early dismissal time. By the time the imposter arrived at my bus stop, I'd already been safely home for nearly 2 hours. This unsettling truth, that the intruder likely wasn't a random stranger, but someone familiar, maybe a family friend or relative, still haunts me. My mom suspects it was an abusive ex-boyfriend who had threatened to kidnap me after their breakup. I never knew him well, only whispers of his name during childhood, but his threats made my mom's skin crawl. I shudder to think how close I came to becoming a statistic. That one innocent, unknowingly life-saving answer on the phone stuck with me. Proof that sometimes a simple act of awareness and luck can change everything. We still live in the same house, surrounded by the same extended family. Now, I have a little brother about the same age I was then. My mom's gut feeling tells her that ex-boyfriend was the threat, and the random timing, the early dismissal, and my answer saved me from a nightmare that day. Thinking back, it's a chilling reminder to always stay alert, even in the quietest suburban neighborhoods, and to lock your doors and close your blinds at night. Living in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Cheshire, England, I had grown accustomed to the familiar and peaceful surroundings. Our street was one where neighbors knew each other, and safety felt like a given, except for one house that had been burgled twice in about a decade due to careless mistakes like leaving keys near the door or leaving valuables in plain sight overnight. During a summer visit back to my parents' home, I was sitting in the kitchen, working on my laptop. The window faced the street, where I typically enjoyed watching people walk by with their dogs or push prams. But this time, something unusual caught my eye in my peripheral vision. Instead of the usual dog walker or neighbor, I noticed two individuals moving in a distinctly odd manner. One was a man dressed in a semi-casual suit, and the other, a woman in simple jeans and a blouse. Their movements were unsettlingly unnatural. The woman's head was twisted unnaturally to one side, with one arm bent backward, her hand flicking repeatedly, while the other arm glided smoothly in a way that reminded me of repelling magnets pushing against each other. The man's movements resembled one of those dancing inflatable figures you might see at a used car dealership. Jerky, unpredictable, and bizarre. Feeling uneasy, I instinctively checked on my cat and saw the two neighbor children, who were waving up at me from an upstairs window. I waved back, then quickly relayed what I'd seen to my parents. My dad furrowed his brow and told me to double-check that the doors were locked. Returning to the kitchen, I found the back door handle being pressed from outside. Instinctively, I pushed the door closed and heard the startled gasps of the two strange individuals as they fled the scene. By the time my dad arrived, both had disappeared, and though he seemed skeptical, I was certain something was wrong. That night, I was startled awake by a child's scream coming from that same house where the strange movement had been spotted. Rushing to the window, I noticed the front door wide open. Acting quickly, I called emergency services and shouted reassurances to any intruders inside while trying to rouse my parents and neighbors. Soon, the mother appeared at the window, holding her children, including a 9-year-old named Emma, who spoke of intruders like clowns on the staircase. Later, I saw police escort the suspicious couple from the house, still exhibiting the eerie movements I had witnessed earlier. The father of the family had confronted the intruders during the break-in, even knocking the woman down the stairs as she tried to ascend. The police speculated that the pair had been trying doors up and down our street before targeting this house, likely because an unlocked door had presented an opportunity. Afterward, I was treated by paramedics for a head injury from a fall during the commotion. I couldn't help but watch in disbelief as officers struggled to restrain the man, whose erratic movements made it nearly impossible to keep him handcuffed. I never learned if the intruders were under the influence of drugs or suffered from some neurological condition, but their unnerving contortions have left an indelible mark on me. Even now, the memory of that night and the sight of those strange moving figures remain vividly etched in my mind. This experience profoundly reinforced the importance of vigilance, even in neighborhoods that seem safe. It reminded me that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places, and being alert to oddities might just make all the difference. When I was about 11 or 12, my older sister and I spent a summer day at Great America Amusement Park. She was around 16 then, just old enough to boss me around, which she did often. We had already been on several rides, but there was one, the massive pirate ship ride, that I didn't want to try. This ride swung back and forth like a pendulum and eventually did full 360-degree loops, leaving riders hanging upside down. My sister kept pestering me to join her, but I kept saying no. Eventually, I gave in, mostly to stop her constant nagging. While we stood in line, we noticed an older man a few people ahead of us. Let's call him Carl. He was loud, yelling about his favorite sports teams without really talking to anyone in particular. At first, we assumed he was joking around with a group of girls nearby, but it seemed they weren't interested in him much, and they mostly tried to ignore him. We finally got on the ride. My sister screamed the whole time. It was her way of making rides more fun. I just felt queasy. When the ride ended, my sister was energized, but I was still feeling dizzy and needed a moment. We stood on a small bridge overlooking part of the park, and I leaned against the railing, trying to catch my breath and keep from throwing up. Suddenly, I felt two big arms wrap around my waist and lift me straight up off the ground. My stomach dropped completely for a different reason. For a moment, I thought he might throw me over the edge of the bridge. I was frozen, unable to scream. Then I was set back down. I spun around to see Carl standing there, smiling as if nothing had happened. My sister rushed over and confronted him, asking why he had just picked me up like that and put herself between us. Carl claimed I looked sick and he was trying to get me some air. But how does lifting someone up help? He ignored her and turned back to me, asking if I was all right and if I was there with my sister or a friend. He then suggested that I ditch my sister and come to the water park with him instead, promising lunch afterward. His words sent chills down my spine. An adult stranger inviting a kid away from her sibling was seriously alarming. I stepped to the side, trying to move past him, but Carl shifted just enough to block my path. We were still on the bridge, nowhere for me to go. Thinking fast, I pretended to make a phone call. I pulled out my cell phone and held it to my ear. "Hey, Mom. Yeah, we just got off the pirate ship ride. Oh, you're by the food court? Okay, me and Sis are on our way now." I made sure Carl heard every word. Then I gently pushed past him. My sister followed without a word. We didn't run, at least not yet, just kept walking steadily until we turned a corner out of his sight. Then we sprinted all the way to the park entrance. We tried to alert the park staff about what happened, but they brushed us off because technically, Carl hadn't broken any law. We didn't even get his real name, just a description. To this day, I think about how things could have gone differently if I hadn't faked that call or if my sister hadn't been there. Carl didn't succeed in taking me, but he definitively tried. So, to the man who picked me up at Great America, I hope we never cross paths again. Living in an apartment complex in Kansas City, Missouri, was a major adjustment for me since I had moved from California to be closer to my dad. My dad, a trucker, was away for weeks at a time, and I often found myself alone in the apartment, comforted only by the occasional visits from my dad's roommate and an elderly neighbor named Claire. Everyone in the building was familiar, except for one man who lived directly below me, the maintenance worker. He was an unsettling figure, bald around the sides with straggly hair, tall, skinny, wearing thick, outdated glasses reminiscent of those seen on crime shows, and sporting a thick mustache. Unlike the friendly neighbors, he never greeted me or made any effort to connect. Though he was responsible for maintaining the entire complex, his unfriendly demeanor didn't raise alarms at first. I tend to appreciate some personal space. One morning, as I was leaving for work, I noticed him standing in the middle of the lawn staring at me intently. The intensity of his gaze sent a shiver down my spine, but I dismissed it and went about my day. Later, when chatting with Claire, she mentioned that she never asked the maintenance man for help and strongly advised I do the same, revealing he was notorious among residents for his creepy behavior. Several nights later, around 2 a.m., I was barely awake on the couch watching a show when I caught a faint noise near the front door. As I turned off the TV and listened carefully, I noticed the doorknob moving as someone inserted a key. Suddenly, the door swung open, and there he was, the maintenance man, stepping inside. My heart dropped. His bulky coat seemed to conceal unknown items, and he looked surprised to find me awake. I mustered up the courage to ask what he was doing. He claimed he had heard my toilet making loud noises all the way from his bedroom and needed to check it, but his unauthorized late-night entry filled me with anger and fear. When I insisted I would report his behavior to management, he arrogantly told me he could come in whenever he wanted and mocked me with a wink before locking the door from the outside as he left. My body shook with adrenaline and nausea at his threat. The next day, I reported this intrusion to the apartment management, hoping for support. Instead, The manager dismissed my concerns, scolding me for not reading my lease thoroughly. Apparently, the lease allowed maintenance workers to enter any unit at any time without prior notice. The manager praised his 20 years of service and showed no intention of disciplining him. I was floored and left without any resolution. A few days later, as I returned from a long work shift, the maintenance man again confronted me, this time across the lawn. His glare had turned to outright fury. As he approached my car, banging on the windows and yelling threats like, "I'm going to get you," and "I'll kill you," I trembled, fumbling to unlock my doors. When I managed to start the car, I sped away in panic and spent the night in a motel in a neighboring county. I returned the next day to report the incident once more, but management remained unsympathetic. They continued to defend the man, referring to him as a valued, dedicated employee with an impeccable record. Frustrated and feeling helpless, I finally lashed out, calling the manager psychotic, which led to my eviction. I also turned to the police, but without sufficient evidence and with the maintenance man's spotless employment history, they could not move forward. Later, when I invited Claire to visit my new home, she confided that another single woman who had lived there before had also fled after experiencing stalking and harassment by the same maintenance man, including being followed and photographed. When confronted, he bluntly told her, "I can do whatever I want." Eventually, I left Missouri after 2 years, returning to California. The overwhelming lesson I learned was to carefully read any lease or rental agreement before signing, as clauses can include unsettling permissions that may compromise your safety. This disturbing experience remains a stark reminder that appearances and reputations do not always reflect a person's true intentions, and vigilance is crucial even in places you think you know. These unsettling encounters highlight the critical role of awareness, instinct, and courage in safeguarding oneself across various stages of life. From a child's quick thinking that prevented a potential abduction, to recognizing and reacting to strange behavior in an otherwise safe neighborhood, to evading a stranger's dangerous advances at an amusement park, and finally, confronting invasive threats from someone trusted with access to your home. Each story underscores the unpredictable nature of danger and the importance of vigilance. Together, they serve as powerful reminders that safety often hinges on our ability to stay alert, trust our instincts, and act decisively when faced with unsettling situations. If these chilling tales resonated with you, please show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing for more gripping and insightful stories. Your engagement helps us continue to bring you compelling content that raises awareness and emphasizes the importance of staying vigilant.